The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slammed shut with a sound that echoed through the stars themselves. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood frozen, the weight of what just happened crushing down on her shoulders. Humanity had been banned, cast out, rejected by the very civilization they had spent decades trying to join. Effective immediately, the council leader's words still rang in her ears. The species known as humans are hereby prohibited from all council space, all council worlds, and all council trade routes. Your aggressive nature, your unpredictable behavior, and your refusal to conform to civilized standards make you a danger to galactic peace. Sarah's hands trembled as she clutched the official decree. Around her, the other human delegates stood in shocked silence. They had come here with such hope. Earth's first contact with alien life had been 20 years ago, and ever since, humanity had dreamed of joining the Galactic Council, the governing body that ruled over 300 different species across thousands of worlds. But the aliens had never understood humans. They feared Earth's history of wars, even though humanity had achieved global peace before making first contact. They were disturbed by human emotions, how humans could laugh and cry, love and hate, all with such intensity. The careful, logical species of the Council found humanity's passion terrifying. "We gave them everything," muttered James Rodriguez, Earth's military advisor. "We shared our technology, opened our borders, let them study us like lab rats. And this is what we get." Sarah turned to face her team. "Pack everything. We leave within the hour." As they walked through the crystal corridors of the council station for the last time, alien delegates from various species watched them with a mixture of relief and pity. The Zealothi, with their perfect blue skin and for arms, whispered among themselves. The machine-like Korvax blinked their mechanical eyes in what might have been satisfaction. The ancient Etherians floated past without acknowledgement. None of them would speak to the humans now. The ban was absolute. Back on their ship, Sarah stared out at the council station growing smaller in the viewport. Earth was 3 months away at faster-than-light speed. 3 months to figure out how to tell 8 billion people that their dreams of joining the galactic community were dead. "Ma'am," her communication officer interrupted her thoughts. "We're receiving a transmission. It's from the Wanderers." Sarah's breath caught. The Wanderers were a mysterious group. Aliens who had rejected the Council centuries ago, or been rejected by it. Nobody knew much about them except that they survived outside Council space in the wild regions between galaxies. "Put it through," Sarah ordered. A hologram appeared, a creature she couldn't quite classify. It seemed to shift and change as if it were made of living shadow. "Humans," the being spoke, its voice like whispered secrets. "We have watched your trial. We know your pain. The Council fears what it cannot control, and you burn too brightly for their cold halls." "Who are you?" Sarah asked. "We are the forgotten, the banished, the free, and we have a proposition. The Council thinks they have ended your story, but perhaps they have only written the first chapter." The transmission ended, leaving only coordinates, a location far beyond Council space. Sarah looked at her team. She saw the hurt in their eyes slowly transforming into something else. Determination, defiance, that uniquely human ability to take rejection and forge it into motivation. "Plot a course," she said quietly. "Let's see what's waiting for us out there." As Earth's ship turned away from Council space, none of them could have imagined what the next 50 years would bring. The Council thought they had protected themselves by casting out humanity. They thought they had removed a threat. They had no idea they had just created their greatest challenge. 50 years. That's how long humanity had been gone from Council space. 50 years since the ban, since the humiliation, since the day the aliens decided humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too different to belong among the civilized species of the galaxy. In the gleaming halls of the Council station, life had continued as it always had. Ordered, peaceful, predictable. The 300-member species went about their business, secure in the knowledge that the chaotic humans were far away, probably struggling to survive in the harsh regions beyond civilized space. Chancellor Vexai of the Galactic Council reviewed the quarterly reports with satisfaction. Trade was up 3.2%. Conflicts were down to zero for the 47th consecutive quarter. Everything was proceeding according to the careful plans laid out by the Council's greatest minds. Chancellor, his aide interrupted, we're detecting an unusual energy signature at the edge of Council space. Vexai's four eyes narrowed. Pirates. Unknown, sir. The signature doesn't match any known vessel types. Before Vexai could respond, space itself seemed to tear open. Not in the smooth, predictable way of Council-approved faster-than-light travel, but something else. Something that made every alarm on the station scream. A ship emerged. No, that wasn't quite right. It didn't emerge, it simply was as if it had always been there and reality had only just noticed. The vessel defied every principle of Council engineering. It seemed to be built from a fusion of technologies that shouldn't work together. Crystalline structures merged with organic components, energy fields that pulsed like a heartbeat, dimensions that hurt to look at directly. Sir, the communications officer's voice shook. They're hailing us. On screen, the face that appeared was human, but barely. Ambassador Sarah Chun, 50 years older, but looking perhaps only 30, smiled at them. Her eyes held depths that seemed to go on forever, and when she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that resonated with something deep in the primitive brains of every species watching. Hello, Council. Did you miss us? Vexai struggled to maintain his composure. Humans are banned from Council space. You will leave immediately, your face, Sarah laughed, and the sound was like silver bells and thunder. Oh, Chancellor, you misunderstand. We're not asking for permission. Behind her ship, space tore open again. And again, and again. Ships poured through, hundreds of them. Each unique, each impossible, each a testament to what happens when human creativity is unleashed without limits. Some looked like they were carved from single asteroids. Others seemed to be made entirely of energy. A few defied description entirely, existing in states of matter the Council's scientists insisted were theoretical. 50 years, Sarah continued, her image now broadcasting to every screen in Council space simultaneously. Another impossibility. 50 years you left us in the dark. Do you know what humans do in the dark, Chancellor? We adapt. We overcome. We thrive. She gestured, and holographic images filled the Council chamber. Images of worlds beyond Council space. Worlds transformed into paradises. Alien species the Council had never seen before, working alongside humans. Cities that floated in the void between stars. Structures that harvested energy from black holes. We found the Wanderers, Sarah explained. The Forgotten Ones. Species you exiled, just like us. The Void Dancers who you called too strange. The Dream Weavers who you feared would corrupt your ordered minds. The Chaos Builders whose technology you couldn't comprehend. More images flashed by. They welcomed us. They share their knowledge. And we shared ours. Do you know what makes humans special, Chancellor? It's not our aggression or our unpredictability. It's our ability to see potential where others see impossibility. To build bridges where others see only void. To find family among those you call outcasts. The Council chamber erupted in panic. Delegates from 100 species, all talking at once, all demanding answers, all feeling the careful order they had built beginning to crack. What do you want? Vexai demanded. Sarah's smile grew wider. Want? We don't want anything from you. We came to deliver a message. The galaxy is bigger than your Council. Life is more diverse than your standards. And humanity? We're doing just fine without you. She paused, letting the words sink in. But here's the thing about humans. We don't hold grudges. Your fear of us led you to cast us out, and that fear made you weak. While you've been playing it safe in your little corner of space, we've been out there, growing, learning, becoming something you could never imagine. The impossible fleet began to move, not towards the Council station, but past it. Hundreds of ships carrying millions of humans and their new allies, heading deeper into Council space. We're not invading, Sarah assured them. We're exploring. You see, beyond your borders, we found species in need. Worlds dying because they don't meet your standards for aid. Civilizations collapsing because they can't afford your trade fees. And we've decided to help them. You cannot. Vexai stood, his ceremonial robes flaring. Council law forbids. Your laws end where your courage does, Sarah interrupted. And from what we've seen, that's not very far at all. A new image appeared, a map of the galaxy. Council space, once seeming so vast, now looked small. Around it, in what they had called the wild regions, lights bloomed. Hundreds of them. Thousands. The Free Alliance, Sarah announced. Every species you rejected. Every world you abandoned. Every life form you deemed unworthy. They're with us now. And together, we're building something beautiful. She leaned forward, and, for a moment, the careful mask of diplomacy slipped. The Council saw what humanity had become in their exile. Not bitter or broken, but transformed. Evolved. Magnificent. You banned us to protect yourselves from our chaos. But chaos, Chancellor, is just another word for potential. And we've realized ours. The transmission began to fade, but Sarah's last words echoed through the chamber. We'll be around, Council. Not as enemies, not as invaders, but as neighbors. Neighbors you chose to fear instead of understand. And when you're ready to see beyond your fear, when you're ready to embrace the chaos of true diversity, we'll be waiting. The human fleet passed through Council space like a dream, leaving ripples of change in their wake. On a dozen worlds, oppressed species suddenly found mysterious packages of advanced technology. Dying planets discovered their atmospheres mysteriously healing. Ancient conflicts resolved as both sides received anonymous messages containing solutions they'd never considered. And, in the council chamber, 300 species sat in stunned silence, realizing that in trying to protect their ordered universe from humanity's chaos, they had unleashed something far more transformative. The humans were back, but they hadn't come to conquer or to plead. They had come to show the galaxy what it was missing. The breaking point came, as most galactic crises do, with a whisper rather than a shout. Deep in council space, on the agricultural world of Verdania, Senior Coordinator Mexvar of the Korvax Collective noticed it first. The quantum crop yields were failing. Not dramatically, just a 0.003% decrease in efficiency. For any other species, it would have been a rounding error. For the obsessively precise Korvax, it was a screaming alarm. Run the diagnostics again. Mexvar ordered his subordinates, his mechanical eyes clicking in agitation. The results were the same. Then came reports from other worlds. The protein farms on Zelothi Prime reported similar decreases. The energy collectors in the Vorthan system registered minute fluctuations. The precisely calibrated ecosystem of council space, maintained for millennia, was beginning to falter. Within days, what started as whispers became panicked shouts. Chancellor Vexhai convened an emergency session as reports flooded in from every corner of council space. The quantum field generators are desensing, reported the Etherian representative, their gaseous form flickering with distress. Our calculation matrices show cascading errors we've never seen before. The trade algorithms are producing irrational results, added the Synthex delegate. Supply chains that have run for centuries are breaking down. Vexhai's 4 eyes darted between the reports. How is this possible? Our systems are perfect. They've been refined over thousands of. That's exactly the problem. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. The council chamber's security systems, supposedly impenetrable, offered no resistance as a figure materialized in the center of the room. Not transported, not projected, simply there, as if reality had bent to allow it. It was a human, but like none they had seen before. Dr. Kenji Nakamura, according to the biosignature their scanners managed to read. He wore simple clothes, but energy danced around him like a living thing. When he smiled, the council members felt their certainties waver. Dr. Nakamura, he introduced himself with a slight bow. Theoretical physicist, chaos mathematician, and, currently, a teacher in the Free Alliance. I thought you might need some help understanding what's happening. Humans are forbidden, Vexhai began. Yes, banned from council space. Kenji waved dismissively. But your space is becoming rather unstable, and I thought you'd prefer an explanation to extinction. He gestured, and equations appeared in the air, not holograms, but actual mathematics somehow written on reality itself. Your perfect systems, Kenji explained, have a fatal flaw. They're too perfect. For 3,000 years, you've eliminated every variable, removed every uncertainty, crushed every deviation. You've created a galaxy-spanning crystalline structure of absolute order. The equations shifted, showing complex system dynamics. But reality isn't orderly. It's chaos barely held in check by probability. And when you squeeze out all the chaos, when you remove every bit of randomness and flexibility, he snapped his fingers. Crystalline structures shatter. The council members watched in horror as his equations predicted their future. System failures cascading through their infrastructure. Technologies becoming unreliable. The perfect order they had built becoming their tomb. "This is your doing," accused the Vorthan Prime speaker. "Human sabotage." Kenji laughed. "Sabotage? We haven't touched your systems. We don't need to. You did this to yourselves the day you decided that diversity was danger, that different meant threat. You banished chaos, and now you're discovering what the universe does to systems that refuse to adapt. Then fix it," Vexai demanded. "I can't," Kenji said simply. "Your systems are too rigid. They can't accept the quantum fluctuations needed to stabilize them. Unless..." He paused, and every delegate leaned forward. "Unless you introduce variability back into your civilization. And, wouldn't you know it, there's a species that specializes in controlled chaos. That thrives on adaptation. That has spent the last 50 years learning to work with hundreds of species you rejected for being too unpredictable." The implications hung in the air like a challenge. "You're blackmailing us," Vexai said quietly. "No." Kenji's expression grew serious. "We're offering you a choice. The same choice you gave us 50 years ago, actually. Isolation or integration. The difference is, we're giving you the chance to choose survival." He touched something on his wrist, and new images filled the chamber. The Free Alliance in all its chaotic glory. Markets where 1,000 species traded in ways that would give council economists nightmares, but somehow worked. Research stations where incompatible technologies were fused into miraculous innovations. Worlds where predator and prey species had found ways to coexist that council xenobiologists insisted were impossible. "This is what we built in exile," Kenji said. "Not despite the chaos, but because of it. Every species you rejected for being too strange, too aggressive, too different, they all had pieces of a larger puzzle. And humans? We're really good at puzzles." "What do you propose?" asked the Etherian delegate, their form shifting with uncomfortable uncertainty. A new figure materialized beside Kenji. Sarah Chun, the ambassador from 50 years ago, now something more than human, but still unmistakably herself. "Integration," she said simply. "Real integration. Not the council's version where everyone conforms to a single standard, but a true galactic community where diversity is strength." She gestured, and the chamber's walls became transparent, showing the space beyond. The impossible human fleet was back, but now accompanied by hundreds more. Ships of the Wanderers, the Void Dancers, the Dream Weavers, and dozen other species. A chaos of designs and technologies that somehow moved in perfect, impossible harmony. "Your choice," Sarah continued. "Open your borders. Allow free movement. Let your citizens choose to stay in their ordered worlds or explore the chaos beyond. In return, we'll help stabilize your systems. Not by making them perfect again, but by teaching them to bend without breaking." "And if we refuse?" Vexai asked, though his voice lacked conviction. "Then you'll get what you wanted 50 years ago," Sarah said sadly. "A galaxy without humans. Without wanderers. Without any of the species you deemed too dangerous. You'll have your perfect order right up until the moment it crystallizes completely and shatters." Kenji added more equations to his display. "Based on current degradation rates, you have perhaps 6 months before critical systems begin failing catastrophically. Less if you try to force more order onto the chaos." The council chamber erupted in debate. 300 species, all talking at once, their perfect protocols forgotten in the face of existential crisis. Some raged against human manipulation. Others, seeing the mathematics spelled out in undeniable clarity, argued for immediate integration. Most simply sat in stunned realization that their perfect civilization had been a house of cards all along. Finally, Vexai raised his ceremonial staff for silence. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 3,000 years of tradition about to shatter. The humans were right about one thing, he said quietly. We did fear you. We feared your wars, your passions, your refusal to fit into our ordered universe. And, in our fear, we may have doomed ourselves. He looked at Sarah and Kenji, then at the chaos fleet beyond the walls. What guarantees can you offer that integration won't destroy us? Sarah smiled, not triumphantly, but with genuine warmth. None. That's the point. The universe offers no guarantees, Chancellor. But I can promise you this. Destruction is certain if you remain static. Change at least offers hope. And more, Kenji added. You've spent 3,000 years perfecting order. We spent 50 years perfecting adaptation. Imagine what we could build together. The vote, when it came, was closer than anyone expected. 151 species for integration. 149 against. A single vote that changed the course of galactic history. As the results were announced, the impossible fleet began to move. Not as invaders or conquerors, but as neighbors finally invited to the block party. Ships docked with council stations. Beings who had been legends or nightmares for centuries walked through airlocks in a council space. And at the center of it all, humanity stood not as rulers or vengeful exiles, but as bridge builders. The species too chaotic to control had become the ones capable of connecting everyone else. Welcome to the real galaxy, Sarah whispered to Vexai as chaos and order began their tentative dance. It's messier than what you're used to, but I promise, it's so much more alive. The integration began immediately, and with it came exactly what the Council had feared 50 years ago. Change. Rapid, overwhelming, transformative change. But also something they hadn't expected. The Grand Symposium of New Harmony, formerly Council Station Prime, buzzed with an energy that would have been unthinkable just 5 years ago. Where once sterile corridors had echoed with measured footsteps and whispered protocols, now they thrummed with life, laughter, and the beautiful chaos of 1,000 species learning to coexist. Marcus Chun Nakamura, grandson of the legendary ambassador Sarah Chun, and the brilliant Dr. Kenji Nakamura, stood at the observation deck watching the impossible made reality. Below him, in what had once been the Council's most sacred deliberation chamber, a void dancer taught quantum mechanics to a class that included Korvax, humans, and 3 species that didn't officially exist in any Council database. Their teaching method involved interpretive dance, mathematical equations that sang, and occasional bursts of controlled reality distortion. 5 years ago, such a scene would have caused Council security to have a collective breakdown. Now it was Tuesday. Hard to believe it all started with a ban. A voice said beside him. Marcus turned to see Elder Vexai, the former chancellor who had cast the deciding vote for integration. The years had changed him. His 4 eyes now held a sparkle of curiosity that rigid protocol had once suppressed. Grandmother always said the ban was the best thing that happened to humanity, Marcus replied, though I don't think she meant it kindly at the time. Vexai made a sound that might have been laughter, another new development. Your species has a gift for turning catastrophe into catalyst. It's quite irritating, actually. They watched as a group of young beings, human, Zealothi, Wanderer, and others, raced through the corridors playing some sort of game that involved phasing through dimensions. 5 years ago, it would have been a security breach. Now it was childhood. The integration hasn't been without its challenges, Vexai admitted. The Order purists still insist we're heading for disaster. The economy has been unpredictable. Unpredictable, but growing, Marcus pointed out. Trade volume is up 400%. New technologies are emerging faster than we can catalog them. And the colony ships, yes, the colony ships, perhaps the most visible symbol of the new age. Where once the Council had carefully controlled expansion, approving new colonies only after centuries of deliberation, now ships launched weekly. Human design, wander navigation, void dancer propulsion, and crew manifest that looked like the galaxy's most diverse party invitation. My favorite is still the one that colonized that impossible planet, Vexai said, the one orbiting the binary black hole system. Marcus grinned. Only humans would look at that and think prime real estate. And only the Free Alliance would have the technology to make it work. A chime sounded through the station. Not the harsh klaxon of old council alerts, but a melody that somehow conveyed urgency without inducing panic. Marcus checked his neural interface, a fusion of human intuition and Korvax precision. Speaking of impossible things, he said, "Want to see something extraordinary?" They made their way to the primary assembly hall, now redesigned to accommodate beings of all sizes, phases of matter, and dimensional preferences. A crowd was already gathering, the excitement palpable. At the center of the hall stood a figure that defied easy description. It appeared human at first glance, then Etherian, then something else entirely. The being's form seemed to shift based on who was observing it, as if it existed in a state of quantum superposition. Citizens of the Harmonious Alliance, the being spoke in a voice that each listener heard in their own native language, despite no translation technology being active. "I am Echo, first of the synthesis." A ripple of amazement went through the crowd. The synthesis, beings born from the true integration of different species. Not hybrids in the biological sense, but something new. Consciousness that emerged from the intersection of radically different ways of existing. "I stand before you as proof of what we've built," Echo continued. "Not human or alien, not chaos or order, but the harmony between extremes. The impossible made manifest." Marcus felt tears on his cheeks, a very human response that his Nakamura side would have found fascinating to analyze. This was what they had been working towards without knowing it. Not just cooperation or coexistence, but genuine transformation. Echo raised a hand that seemed to contain starlight. "But I'm not here merely as a symbol. I bring news from the deep void, from the spaces between galaxies where our explorer fleets have ventured." The hall fell silent. "We are not alone in the universe," Echo announced. "And I don't mean in the way we've always known. There are others out there, civilizations so vast, so ancient, that our entire galactic community is but a single cell in a larger organism. They have been watching, waiting to see if we would transcend our limitations." A projection appeared, structures that dwarfed galaxies, beings of pure thought, civilizations that had evolved past the need for physical form. "They sent a message," Echo continued. "They said, 'The children have learned to play together. Perhaps it is time to meet the family.'" The implications hit the assembly like a wave. Everything they had built, all their struggles and triumphs had been just the first step. The band that had seemed like an ending, the integration that had seemed like a climax. They were just the prologue to something infinitely larger. Elder Vexai turned to Marcus, his four eyes wide with an emotion the old council had no word for. "Wonder, perhaps. Or hope. Your grandmother was right," he said softly. "The ban was the best thing that happened to humanity. And perhaps to all of us." Marcus nodded, looking around the hall at the impossible diversity that had become their strength. Humans and aliens, order and chaos, the banished and the established, all united in facing the infinite unknown. "We were banned for being too different," he said. "Turns out, different was exactly what the universe needed." As Echo continued revealing the wonders and challenges that awaited them, Marcus thought about the journey that had brought them here. 55 years ago, humanity had stood alone, rejected, and exiled. Now, they stood at the heart of something unprecedented, a civilization built not on conformity, but on the celebration of diversity, not on fear, but on the courage to embrace the unknown. The Galactic Council had thought they were ending humanity's story when they issued their ban. Instead, they had written the first chapter of a tale that would span the cosmos. And the best part? The story was just beginning. In the depths of space, the explorer fleets pushed ever outward, each ship a testament to the power of unity in diversity. Human passion guided them. Alien precision navigated. and the combined dreams of 100 species propelled them toward tomorrow. They'd been banned, isolated, and told they didn't belong. They had emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than their judges could have imagined. And now, as the universe opened its infinite doors before them, one truth echoed through every hull, every heart, every merged consciousness. Humanity hadn't just survived their exile. They had transformed it into the key that unlocked the future for everyone. The ban had failed in the most spectacular way possible. It had tried to diminish humanity and instead had elevated an entire galaxy. And somewhere in the vast expanse, Sarah Chen's spirit seemed to whisper on the cosmic wind, "Thank you for banning us. We couldn't have done it without you." 100 years. A century since the ban that changed everything. 100 revolutions around various suns since humanity was cast out of council space for being too aggressive, too chaotic, too human. The memorial of first contact stood in what had once been the center of the old Galactic Council chambers. Now, it was a museum, a reminder of how limited thinking could nearly doom a civilization. Tour groups of impossibly diverse beings moved through the exhibits, younglings gasping at the primitive technology and rigid thinking of the Order era. Can you believe they used to segregate species by biological compatibility? A young synthesis asked their progenitors, a mix of human creativity, Korvax precision, and void dancer transcendence. Admiral Sarah Chun Nakamura Vex High, great-granddaughter of the legendary Sarah Chun, carrying genes and consciousness patterns from a dozen species, smiled at the question. As commander of the transdimensional fleet, she had seen wonders that would have broken the minds of the old council. But she never forgot where they came from. "Gather round," she told the younglings, her voice carrying the harmonics of multiple species. "Let me tell you the real story of the Great Transformation." They clustered around her, eager beings who had never known a galaxy divided by fear. To them, the idea that species had once been banned for being different was as archaic as believing stars were gods. "It started with fear," Sarah began, activating a holographic display. "The old council feared humanity because we didn't fit their patterns. We waged war, then made peace. We created beauty, then destroyed it. We loved fiercely and hated with equal passion. To beings who had spent millennia perfecting order, we were chaos incarnate." The display showed the moment of the ban. Ambassador Sarah Chun standing alone as 300 species voted to exile humanity. "But here's what the council never understood," Admiral Sarah continued. "Chaos isn't the opposite of order. It's order's dancing partner. You can't have one without the other. Not if you want to create something truly alive." She waved her hand, and the display exploded into color and movement. The 50 years of exile, compressed into moments, humans meeting wanderers, learning from the forbidden, building impossible things in the spaces between stars. When humanity returned, we didn't come as conquerors. We came as teachers. We showed the galaxy that diversity wasn't something to be feared but celebrated. That strength came not from conformity, but from the beautiful mess of different minds working together. "But, Admiral," one of the younglings interrupted, "if the humans were right, why did it take so long for everyone to understand?" Sarah's expression grew thoughtful. "Because change is terrifying, especially when you've been comfortable for thousands of years. The council had built a perfect cage and called it paradise. It took their systems failing to make them see the bars." She shifted the display to show the integration period, the chaos, the conflicts, but also the breakthroughs. Species that had been enemies for millennia suddenly, finding common ground through human mediation. Technologies that shouldn't have worked together, creating miracles. The birth of the first synthesis beings. And now, she gestured beyond the museum walls to the galaxy beyond. Now we have the Harmonic Collective. Not a government that rules through conformity, but a symphony where every species plays their own instrument. Humans brought the passion, Korvax the precision, void dancers the transcendence, wanderers the adaptability. "And the Etherians?" a gaseous youngling asked. "The Etherians taught us to dream in colors that don't exist," Sarah smiled. The display shifted one final time, showing the present. The galaxy was unrecognizable from a century ago. Dyson spheres powered by impossible mathematics. Ships that traveled not through space, but around it. Beings that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. And at the heart of it all, Earth, no longer just humanity's birth world, but a pilgrimage site for those who wanted to understand the power of transformation. The ban, Admiral Sarah concluded, was the greatest gift the Council ever gave us. Not because exile was pleasant, but because it forced us to become more than we were. It taught us that rejection could be redirected into revolution, that isolation could become innovation. And now we're meeting the Ancient Ones, another youngling exclaimed, referring to the cosmic civilizations Echo had revealed decades ago. Yes, Sarah nodded. And they've told us something interesting. Do you know why they waited so long to contact us? The younglings shook their heads in perfect unison, despite belonging to different species with different anatomies. They were waiting for us to stop dividing ourselves, to stop seeing human and alien and start seeing US. The ban was part of a test we didn't even know we were taking. And we passed not by conquering our differences, but by celebrating them. She stood, her form shifting slightly as different aspects of her heritage manifested. Remember this, younglings. 100 years ago, humanity was banned for being too dangerous. Today, the descendants of those dangerous humans lead expeditions to meet beings of pure thought. We were exiled for our chaos, and that chaos became the key to transcendence. Will we be banned from anywhere? A young human zealothy hybrid asked. Admiral Sarah laughed, a sound that rippled through dimensions. Probably. And when it happens, remember the lesson of your ancestors. Every door that closes is just an invitation to build a better door. Every rejection is a chance to grow beyond the limits others place on you. She led them out of the museum, into the grand plaza where 1,000 species mingled freely. Music that should have been cacophonous somehow harmonized. Architecture that defied physics stood proudly. Children played games that would have been considered acts of war a century ago. In the center of the plaza stood a statue, not of any single being, but an abstract representation of unity in diversity. At its base, an inscription in every known language, including some that existed only as pure thought. Banned by the Galactic Council for excessive humanity, returned with excessive hope from exile, to example from rejection, to transcendence. Thank you for teaching us that different is not dangerous, different is essential. As the tour group dispersed, Admiral Sarah remained by the statue. She thought of her great-great-grandmother, standing alone in that council chamber, bearing the weight of humanity's rejection. Could she have imagined this? Could any of them? A presence touched her mind. One of the Ancient Ones, being so evolved they existed as pure consciousness spanning galaxies. Your species intrigues us still, it communicated. Most civilizations we observe achieve unity through conformity. You achieved it through chaos. How? Sarah smiled, looking up at the infinite stars where humanity and its allies now played among giants. Simple, she replied. We were banned for being human, so we became more human. And in doing so, we showed everyone else how to become more themselves. Turns out, the universe doesn't need perfect order. It needs perfectly imperfect beings brave enough to dance with chaos. The Ancient One's amusement rippled through nearby dimensions. Perhaps that is why you were chosen. Chosen? Did you think your ban was accidental? That your species' placement in that exact galaxy at that exact time was chance? You were the catalyst we seeded, the chaos needed to break a stagnant order. And you exceeded every projection. Sarah felt the weight of cosmic purpose settling on her shoulders. So it was all planned? Planned? No. Hoped for? Yes. The universe needed teachers who could show that strength comes from diversity, that growth requires conflict, that love transcends species. Humanity's gift was never aggression or chaos. It was the ability to see potential where others saw threat. The presence faded, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts. She looked around at the impossible civilization they had built at the younglings playing games that cross dimensional boundaries, at the former enemies now working together on problems that span galaxies. 100 years ago, humanity had been banned for being too dangerous, too different, too human. Today, they were celebrated for exactly those qualities. The ban hadn't broken them. It had forged them into something the universe desperately needed. A species that could unite by embracing differences, that could lead by following their hearts, that could transform rejection into revolution. And as the stars wheeled overhead, each one a destination rather than a distant dream, one truth echoed through the cosmos. Humanity had been banned from the Galactic Council, and it was the best thing that ever happened to the universe.